So the pathologist is important in this because what we do is we look at the tissue that your surgeon or your family practitioner takes off. They will take it off. We will look at it under the microscope. And what we do is we're able to look at it and tell what normal structures are. We spend a long time learning what normal is because you can't tell what's abnormal until you know what normal is.
Right.
And it's actually more of an art than a science because if you think about how you recognize your grandmother at the airport, amongst the 1,000 people that get out of the airport terminal, you just know. There are all these different things you've spent your life learning where you can recognize something. And all the training that we do, which is quite a long time, is basically building a library in our heads of things we look for.
Okay.
So in each tissue, a cancer will look different than normal tissue. And we can also do special studies on those cancer cells to tell us what type of cancer it is.
Now, is there always one study that you can do?
There's a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
So anytime I look at a cancer, a lot of times the cancer will look somewhat like the tissue it came from, like skin cancer. It will look like a certain type of aggregate of cells. Mm-hmm. Those cells, a lot of the time, if they are well differentiated, it means that they're close to what they should have been. So they start making things that look like skin.
Okay.
So I can look at it and tell you this came from the skin. Mm-hmm. Other times, and I don't need to do the studies of that for something like that.
Okay.
Other times, the cells will not look like much of anything. So I need to look for certain markers on the surface. Since all cells come from a stem cell, mm-hmm. even though they don't look like anything, along the way, as they grow up to become something specific, they start to have the DNA tell the cell, okay, you're going to start expressing this on the surface. So they make big molecules called proteins, mm-hmm. and that's what you eat. Those proteins use basic building blocks from the protein you eat, and those start being expressed on the surface. Because remember I said that it's really dictating, that the DNA dictates how the cell is going to differentiate and what it's going to do in its environment. So in order to know what it's going to do, it starts expressing certain proteins on its surface that do things in its environment.
Now, are these stem cells that are located in the skin that are giving rise to the skin tumor?
There are stem cells that are different everywhere. So the stem cells in the skin are the bottom layer of the skin, and as they grow, they become more mature skin cells. So the surface of any part of the body, the outer surface, is called epithelium. Epi, outer. So the stuff in your mouth is the same stuff as on your skin. The only difference is that on your skin, once those cells grow up, they also produce a protein called keratin. And keratin is actually made because it makes things tougher. Because it's on the outside of your body wants to protect itself from a lot of different things. Whereas in your mouth, it's more protected, so it doesn't do that. Even though they're the same cells, cell types, it grows up and does something slightly different.
Okay.
So what we'll do if we have cells that don't look like much is we can take certain antibodies, which are basically targets. They're like smart bullets, and so they will home in on any protein I want. So I may look for a combination of 5 different proteins on the surface, because if I look at it, I can tell you, well, since it expresses these 2 but not these 3, that must be skin, or it must be a lymphocyte, and we'll talk about what that is. But once I know what it is, I can say what kind of cancer it is. I can tell you how it should be, that tells the doctor how it should be treated, and also what the outcome will be. Like, will it come back aggressively? Will it metastasize and go elsewhere? That's all dependent on what kind of tumor it is.
Yeah, where I lived 10 years, is one of the things that might be determined by your diagnosis. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I take all that information and I put it into a report and I give a final diagnosis. And in my report, it'll talk about what I saw, but at the top will be a headline that says the bone marrow or the skin showed such and such, and then the doctor acts on it appropriately. And a lot of times I tell them there's nothing bad here, but when there is something bad, I tell them exactly what it is.
Okay.